The school bell rang, the sound of freedom. Like any other day, I set off home, the same route, same thoughts, same me. A route so familiar, I could walk it blindfolded. It wasn't until that van pulled up that my normalcy shattered. Like a horror movie cliché, it came out of nowhere, sun glare bouncing off its dirty white exterior. A man jumped out, grabbing me, stifling my screams with a grungy cloth. My heart pounded like a frantic drummer in my chest. Fear, pure and undiluted, swallowed me whole. A blindfold was tied over my eyes, muffling my sight. I kicked and screamed, but my cries for help were swallowed by the humming engine. His threats were clear, his manipulation cruel. He convinced me. Any attempt to seek help would result in dire consequences. He painted horrifying images of the harm that would befall me and my loved ones. The fear of retaliation was paralyzing, turning my blood to ice and compelling me to hold my silence. The realization of my abduction hit me as the van continued to rumble on, far beyond the familiar streets of my hometown. The blindfold allowed slivers of light, illuminating glimpses of unfamiliar scenery. My stomach churned with a sickening combination of dread and nausea. My abductor was silent, his presence a menacing shadow in the driver's seat. Every so often, he'd make a callous remark, ensuring I knew how helpless I was. I was trapped, not just within the van, but also within my own fear. His threats resonated in my mind, weaving a horrifying narrative of what lay ahead. My eyes stung with unshed tears, and I swallowed the lump of fear in my throat. Our pit stop for the night was a dimly lit motel. The room was nothing more than 4 walls and a worn-out bed, a stark reminder of the predicament I found myself in. He tossed a bag of clothes at me, ordering me to change. The clothes felt rough and foreign against my skin as I stepped out of the bathroom, and I met his gaze. It held a predatory quality, and my heart clenched in response. The silence in the room was broken only by the low hum of the cooling unit. That night, he assaulted me. His actions were a raw display of power and control, a stark and violent invasion of my person. His rough hands were forceful, each touch bringing a new wave of pain and fear. The sharp edge of terror cut through me, making every muscle in my body tense. I could barely breathe, let alone scream. But as he towered over me, I clenched my teeth, fighting back tears of pain, bracing against the wave of torment that crashed over me. His harsh words were as grating as his actions. The room fell into a deep silence after he finished. His heavy, rhythmic breathing filled the room, a stark contrast to the violent storm that had just passed. My body was still reeling from the abuse, every cell crying out in protest against the physical violation I'd endured. I lay on the bed, wide-eyed, staring at the stains on the ceiling, my heart echoing a drumbeat of fear and despair. My spirit felt bruised, my body battered, but I refused to let my hope be crushed. I clung to the small spark of determination, letting it keep me from falling into the dark abyss of despair. Eventually, exhaustion overpowered my racing thoughts. Despite the cold dread seeping into my bones and the ache throbbing in every muscle, my eyes fluttered shut. My sleep was fraught with nightmares, his face looming over me, hands reaching, touching. I was woken with the shrill ring of an alarm he had set on his phone. He was up in an instant, his movements methodical and deliberate as he readied himself. His demeanor had returned to an unsettling normal facade he presented to the outside world, as though the horrors of the previous night had never occurred. The chill of the morning did nothing to ease the burning shame and violation I felt. As I put on the clothes he'd given me, I couldn't help but feel like I was donning a costume, playing a role in his twisted narrative. I was given a few minutes to clean up before we were back on the road. The morning sun felt harsh against my skin as I climbed into the van, a cruel irony to the storm raging within me. As the motel disappeared in the rearview mirror, I felt a surge of dread for what lay ahead. Our only stop was a gas station in a small, sleepy town. The normality of it was deafening, people going about their lives, unaware of the turmoil hidden in plain sight. I asked to use the bathroom, and he agreed, but not without tightening his grip around my hand, a silent threat. "Remember, we're a couple," he warned, his voice a chilling whisper in my ear. The familiarity he imposed was nauseating. His grip was unyielding as we walked together, an embodiment of the control he exerted over me. In the cramped bathroom, I caught sight of myself in the mirror. The reflection staring back was a stranger, a girl on the brink of desperation. As I returned to him, his fingers immediately interlocking with mine, I realized the complexity of the game I was forced to play. As we continued our journey, an air of sinister normality seemed to settle around us. But inside, my mind was a storm of plans and fear. The road stretched out, an unvarying ribbon of asphalt that served as a brutal reminder of the ordeal I was living. The weight of my predicament hung heavy in the claustrophobic confines of the van. Then, in an unexpected turn of events, our journey was interrupted by a deafening crash. The van swerved uncontrollably, the world spinning in a terrifying blur before colliding into a roadside barrier. Glass shattered, metal screeched, and the smell of burning rubber filled the air. My body lurched forward from the impact, the seatbelt the only thing holding me back. The world stilled around me, save for the flicker of flames dancing in the wreckage. The fire illuminated his unconscious form and slumped against the steering wheel. Fear of the man who had inflicted so much pain gave way to fear of the inferno threatening to engulf us. Survival instinct took over, adrenaline rushing through me like a torrential river. With trembling hands, I unbuckled the seatbelt and pushed the door open. My legs felt like jelly beneath me, but the sight of the growing fire provided a horrifying motivation. I stumbled away from the burning wreck, every step an echo of the freedom I had yearned for. As I stood there, watching the van devoured by flames, a wave of relief washed over me. I had escaped. The nightmare was over.